Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Transfer Talk Show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. There's never a day when Liverpool are not linked with a player, and it's no different during the off season. Today, we'll be discussing a player that has been not strongly linked, but has been linked to some extent to Liverpool, and that is Rafael Leao. So, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new to the channel. Now, let's get into Rafael Leao now. So, of course, we know him as a Portuguese international. In terms of his age profile, he will be turning 26 tomorrow. From a position point of view, he's predominantly a left winger, but can play as a striker, possibly in a two rather than as a lone striker, but does have the credentials to play as an attacker. In terms of his stats for AC Milan in this past season, 50 appearances, 12 goals, and 13 assists. So 25 GA in 50 appearances. Now, my thoughts on the player in general, I think he's a very talented player. I feel like on his heyday, he can be unplayable and unstoppable during his sort of stride. I feel like he's a player that possesses fantastic skill, very direct. Um, when he's running at full flow, very, very hard to stop. Has a good shot on him, has some good passing range as well. Great cross of the ball. Definitely isn't the type of winger that just lofts the ball in the air. He hits it with purpose, and that actually helps the striker where all they need to do is guide it towards the goal and it ends up hitting the back of the net. So I feel like he does offer a different dimension to whatever team he plays for. He definitely touches that byline, and maybe we need that sort of striker. We've been accustomed to having wingers that become inside forwards more than not. He'll give you that variation because I think he can do both roles. I think he can play as an inside forward, but he can also play as a traditional out and out winger as well. So, there will be teams where we really need to attack the opposition's right back. I feel like he's one that, in one-on-one duels, he can definitely, you know, be a menace in that sort of position. So I feel like he's a quality player. I know some people don't rate him. He definitely gets mixed reviews. Some will argue to say that he's inconsistent, which is probably a fair assessment. But then again, which winger, is is consistent? They are attacking players, so they will have their good days and bad days. I think we've just been spoiled when you've witnessed the likes of Ronaldo and Messi over the years that you just expect perfection from your attackers. That's not how it always goes, especially when you play against teams that provide the low block. But I feel like with this Liverpool team, you know, touch wood, it's not been official yet, but we're on the verge of signing Florian Wirtz. And when you've got a creative player like that in your team, he's definitely going to unlock doors that we probably haven't done over the years. So, if Rafael Leao was in this team playing alongside Wirtz, then that's a different, combination that could really be fruitful in terms of the number of goals that Liverpool can score. So that's why I feel like, we have to be very smart with who we acquire as our left winger if certain players leave, or Leao can play as a striker. I I wouldn't say he's our number nine. I wouldn't quite categorize him in that role, but I do feel like in certain roles, or in certain games, he can play further up top, in my opinion. So for me, he gives you that raw speed, that directness. Very good dribble of the ball, has a good shot on him as well. So for me, he's pretty much got everything you need to be a top winger. And I feel like, depending on the formation that we play next season, because I don't think we're going to, predominantly play one sort of setup. I think there's going to be variation in terms of how Arne Slot sets the team up. I don't think it'll just be 4-2-3-1. I think we'll have a different variation. So that's something we can discuss very shortly. But I feel like, if he's going to be signed on paper, he will be regarded as a left winger as well as a striker, in my opinion. Just gonna go through some of the comments here. Abdurrahim, he says, hi, Ozzy in chat, assalamu alaikum. Welcome salam to you. Abdul says, how are you? I'm doing good, Abdul. I hope you are doing good as well. He says, like, comment, share, and subscribe. How's Eid? And he says, thanks. Eid was good. Thank you, Abdul. I hope you had a good day as well and enjoyed the festivities. Uh, JK says, bless, bro. Big up yourself, JK, as always. He says, I take Leao, top player who's going still at AC Milan. That's a very valid point because some will say he's inconsistent, but when I see him play for the Portugal team, he's a different player when he plays for them. So it could just be where he's been out of place, you know, a bit longer than he probably anticipated, or it's just been where he's been not been able to make that move away from the club because AC Milan have not been a dominant team over the years. Obviously, they've had good spells. They have won silverware, but they, they haven't been dominant. When we faced them in 2005, and I'm going way back now, but it's that not that kind of caliber of a team anymore. So when you've got a team where it's up and down, fortunately, it reflects on the players as well. The players aren't able to be as consistent as they would like. They've chopped and changed their managers several times during the season, let alone in previous years. So he's not really found a constant stride or stability at AC Milan. So maybe it's just time for him to move on. He's 25 years old. He's going to be 26 tomorrow. So this is probably a good age for him to maybe look elsewhere, go for another challenge. So let's see where he's destined to go. But what we'll do for now, we will present him in a Liverpool lineup. All of the players that are in the lineup are not officially Liverpool players, but we're going based off rumors and strong indication that we are going to acquire some new players. So in our traditional 4-3-1 formation, um, I don't really need to speak too much about the defense. Of course, you've got Kerkez and Frimpong. That will be our attack-minded fullbacks. In this team, this is why I don't see us playing this sort of setup that much because it suits more for a fullback to go more inside. So if Liao and Salah were more inside, then I feel like you lose Liao's impact in the team. He would want to attack this part of the channel. Uh, but then again, I feel like Kirkes, which is probably one of the reasons why we're buying Kirkes, is because he can go on those overlapping runs. But at the same time, he can underlap and go inside as well. So that could be an option in terms of this setup. With Frimpong, he's definitely going to occupy that byline. And then you'll have here. So you end up having a bit of a quartet of players there. You've got two fullbacks providing the width, but then Leao coming a bit more central. Now, is he that kind of player? Is he an inside forward? I wouldn't quite say he is naturally. I think he's more of an out and out sort of winger. So in this setup, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but I don't feel like you get the best out of Leao. So it's going to be interesting in terms of how we play next season because this is the formation we pretty much played last season. Next season, I think, depending, based on the profile players that we're trying to sign, I don't expect to be the setup. And then you've got your 4-3-3 formation here now with Gravenberch. I think he's going to deploy more of a deeper role. And then you've got the likes of Szoboszlai and McAllister in your number 8 role. So Szoboszlai won't be playing as a 10 as such. In fact, I think it'll be where Florian Wirtz drop deep at time. I personally don't want Florian Wirtz to have this as a sort of static role up top on his own. I would like it where he plays more in his natural position. But based on this formation that we have currently, Leao would have to be, the out and out winger. But during games, these two can interchange. So you have Verts attacking from that left hand side and Leao more centrally. So it could work. You could find that balance. But me personally, the inkling that I'm getting is that we're going to switch it up next season. I envision us to play a bit more of a sort of 4-4-2 diamond formation. I think that's where you're gonna get the best out of the players that we currently have in the squad. So, Frimpong, who is officially a Liverpool player now, so I can speak about him in more detail. He's going to occupy that right hand side. That's his role, and that allows Mohamed Salah to play more as a sort of striker more than anything else, or more of a an inverted winger, I guess, because I don't think we're going to. Well, if you look at the rumors right now, we're not linked with a real striker as of yet. I do feel like it would add balance to this team because in certain games, if you had a proper number nine, like let's say Leao was that number nine, then you can have players drifting to different positions and it could work. But in this formation, I feel like you have Gravenberch who has shown enough quality that he can play in that number six role. And then what ends up happening is that I feel like he's going to play a lot more deeper next season. So you end up having more of a sort of a back three in that way. And then you've got Turkez and then you've got Frimpong, further down there, the pitch. And then you've got Szoboszlai, McAllister covering ground, and especially with Szoboszlai's engine, that's what he's going to be utilized for. And then they'll be able to ping the balls, and then you have Verts being the creative spark, playing his natural game as a number 10, roaming around the box and trying to thread the ball to the likes of Leao and Salah. But with Leao, it'll be where I think he'll try and attack more on this side, and then you'll see have Salah coming a bit more infield and being, a bit of a poacher, getting more on the end of tap-ins rather than being a creative spark in the team. So I feel like with this team, you get a bit more of a variation. And I feel like it could, add a great balance to our team. But, at this stage, it is pretty much rumors. But, I think Rafael Leão could be a very interesting profile. If you believe the rumors. But drop a comment, let me know what you guys think. If you feel like, Leao could be a good or useful addition to our squad. Now, in terms of the current rumor uh, regarding Leao, the rumor is that he is available for 60 million euros, which is around 50 million pounds. He's been linked with a number of clubs in the last few days. You've got the likes of Liverpool, of course, you've got Arsenal, Chelsea, and Bayern Munich, who are in the market for a left winger. These are some of the names that have been linked today. Um, my verdict on Rafael Leao is that he's definitely on the move. I think he's ready to pursue a new challenge elsewhere, and I think AC Milan are ready to cash in. There were also rumors circulating in regards to Liverpool with Luis Diaz being linked with a move to Al Nassr. Al Nassr is also another team linked with Rafael Leao. But the rumor is that Al Nassr are willing to place a bid of £70 million for Luis Diaz. Now, if you look at the rumors, it does indicate that Luis Diaz will be leaving Liverpool this season. And I think if Luis Diaz does leave, Leao could be a name that should be into consideration to replace him. He would be regarded as a like-for-like replacement, a player that can play left wing and can play up top as well. And he would be more of an established name in the team rather than, appointing an up-and-coming winger. Not that I don't think that's a great idea. I think, if you look at certain profiles in Europe, an up-and-coming winger wouldn't be a bad shout because you'll be spending, a lesser fee in comparison to the 50 million that would be quoted for Rafael Leao. And you can use that money elsewhere to strengthen other parts of the squad. But for 50 million, if you're looking at valuation and uh, a player of his quality, I feel like that's value for money. I think he would be a great signing for Liverpool. I think he would do really well in our current setup. Depending on the formation, I feel like he can fit in the different formations that I've just presented. And if he finds the perfect coach in Arne Slot who can make him view the game a bit differently and use his strengths and qualities to his maximum, then we'll be able to unlock the real Rafael Leao on a more consistent basis. Because I think that is more of the concern. Some people may say he's completely rubbish and they don't rate him at all. A lot of people would say he's inconsistent, which is probably a fair assessment, I would say. But I've seen enough of the player to suggest that there is a top um, talent there. He's a player that I feel like could definitely help us in our title charge next season, but also trying to gain more than one trophy. Um, across different competition next season. So for me, 50 million is not a crazy price. You just seen certain players in the Premier League signed for that kind of fee. Liam Delap went for about 35, 40 million. So, add another 10, 15 million. You've got yourself a player who, on his heyday, could be regarded as one of the best wingers in Europe, in my opinion. So, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. If Leao would be the type of player that you'd want to see at Anfield next season. Um, I know he gets mixed views, so it'll be interesting to see how everyone feels about him. Just got a comment here from Mazzy. Big up Mazzy. He says, I think Rafael Leão at age 25 and has got 40 caps for Portugal would be a good signing for LFC, but only if Luis Diaz leaves. That I will definitely agree. If he was to be signed in addition, it could still work, but what would be the do you know what? It still could work, and I'll tell you why, because that would mean that Luis Diaz will be labeled as our striker next season rather than, as a left winger. Because arguable to say, I think Diaz was our best striker last season. It's not his natural role. It's a role that we, end up playing him a lot more, especially after the Leverkusen game where he scored a hat trick. But, if Diaz does decide to stay and we also sign, Rafael Leao, they can definitely play in the same team. Leao would be the left winger, and then Diaz would be the main striker up top. But for me, I would like to sign a established striker, a gunman in front of goal, someone that plays that role to their abilities. It's a bit more of a natural game for them. Diaz can do it, but I feel like there were a lot of games last season where it was quite evident that that's not his best role. There were teams where, especially I think the Newcastle game that comes to mind, he was out muscled and, it pretty much phased him out of the game. And that's not something you want, especially when you're trying to challenge for major honors next season. So you can't rule it out in terms of, both these players in an ideal world being in the same team. It can definitely work, but it definitely mean that Luis Diaz ends up being that new striker or because that's what we label as some of our, internal players. We label them as a new signing. So that would be the same label in this situation, unfortunately, where Diaz would be regarded as our main striker with Jota behind him. For me, yeah, I don't mind him in that role, but I feel like we really need to sign someone that is a natural finisher up top. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But that's an interesting one. I don't know if he'll end up staying. I have the inkling that he will end up leaving. It's just that Liverpool don't want to sell him to Barcelona. I think that's been evidently clear now. That's why we're trying to engage with the Saudi teams more than any other team in Europe. So it'll be very interesting to see what ends up with Luis Diaz next season. Abdul says midfielder with protect back four organization, leadership and ability to win and distribute the ball effectively to midfield playmakers and forward. Fair enough. Um, Raji Painting, big up yourself. He says, Hi Ozzy, what's the latest news on Florian Wirtz? Top journalist said this will be a quick deal, but now it's become a long saga. LSE want to pay 113 million. They want 126. Now apparently it will be 118. I think they're just trying to finalize the sort of payment structure of the deal. We're all hearing mixed news, and yes, it is a bit frustrating. At one part we're hearing that it should be sealed within 24 hours, 48 hours. Some are saying, it's not the case because bids are getting rejected as well. So um, it's. I would just say we have to remain patient. I think the deal will get concluded very soon. I think it's just a matter of days, more than anything else. So hopefully, it can be done. It's a big deal, for Liverpool especially. We don't really spend that kind of money on any player, and for that price, there's always going to be issues about the payment structure because I think we're willing to pay 100 million up top, and then it's the remaining fees are on add-ons. So maybe they want more up top, or they want bigger fees in terms of those bonuses to try and top up that fee even more. 'Cause I think the tag that they had was price tag that they had was 150 million euros. So How much is that? I think that's roughly 126 million pounds. So I think they're still after that fee. But Liverpool will try and do everything in their power to get a lesser fee. I think the deal will probably be concluded around 120 million pound. That's the guess that I'm going with. Um, so yeah, hopefully that can happen. JK says, bro, you can drop the link if you want. I was going to do a quick one, but if you're still on, let me put in the live chat. Let me see if I can do that. And yeah, if you're able to come on in the next couple of minutes, then I'll have you on. Otherwise, we'll schedule another show together. But yeah, the Florian Wirtz one, that's definitely news that I think a lot of us Liverpool fans have PTSD. We're still like not come to terms with that. Failed bids over the years, when including Tchouaméni, Caicedo, Bellingham. So it's not ideal in terms of having those past experiences, and it's affecting our excitement for this deal, because we should be excited. This is a player that forget what Man City fans are telling you. This is a player that is one of the best midfielders in the world, in my opinion, and he's going to show it in the Premier League. He's going to show the levels. I know Cherky's on the verge of signing for Man City, and that was a player that we were strongly linked with as well. So it's going to be an interesting war between the two players. But look, I think we've got the better deal. Some will say, look, financially, you guys have paid over the odds and all that sort of stuff. Well, you know, to get a certain level of talent, you have to splash the cash, and that's what Liverpool have done in this scenario. So for me, I'm not too hugely concerned about the fee, because this is what we wanted. We wanted the owners to show a bit of ambition, and they're finally doing it. So there's no arguments on my side. And look, not to sound silly or anything like that, it's not my money as such. So if the club are willing to spend that money to acquire a high level player like Verts, I'm all for it. And this is what we wanted, isn't it? So we can't really have too much qualms on the fee, but I feel like, it's about time Liverpool signed a player who is world class right now, not, on verge of declining. We've signed players like a Thiago Alcantara, who for me was probably one of the best midfielders at the time. But, injuries and, getting older, he wasn't, in his prime years as such. So looks like we're going to get a prime Florian Wirtz, and for years to come, hopefully. Mike says, any news on Darwin Nunes regarding his future? So the rumor that I've seen, I'm sure you've seen as well, is regarding Al Hilal showing interest in the player. And apparently, Nunes is not interested in the move. I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you, because for me, Saudi look like the right destination for both club and player. But of course, we gained a big transfer fee for a player who, for me, has underperformed over the years. And then you've also got a player that can go over to another league, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's not the most competitive leagues in the world. And it also allows him to play first team football. It strengthens his position to be in the Uruguayan squad for the World Cup next year, because this is a big year for a lot of the players. So you know, at Liverpool, if I'm being honest, if he remains at the club, he's not going to get any game time. So he's better off moving elsewhere and start a new chapter at a different club. For me, the worst case now would be to loan him out, and then maybe have a fee agreed at the end. I don't want to see that kind of deal, to be honest with you. It would be, some would say good riddance. I think that's a bit strong to say good riddance, but I just feel like he's not performed the way I expected him to do, and I just feel like it's better for him to join another club where he might be utilized a little bit different. He might suit a different league better than the Premier League, in my opinion. So with Darwin Nunes, I feel like he will leave, but it doesn't appear to be a straightforward move where it's one club that's interested. It looks like he might be holding up for a European club, and if it is a European club that is interested in signing the player, unfortunately for Liverpool, we're not getting anything near 70, 80 million. We'll probably end up having to settle for about 40, 50, which isn't too bad if I'm being brutally honest. But obviously, if you can double the odds, then why not? So that's the way I would look at it. Just got JK at the back, so I'll bring in one and get his thoughts on Rafael Leão. JK, how you doing, bro?
I'm okay, bro. How you doing? Long time.
Too bad. Give me your thoughts on Rafael Leão because
Yeah.
all over social and a lot of fans aren't, I'm not saying that he's going to come back, as in, when you hear these links, you always
Mhm.
get people's opinions. And I don't feel like we've gotten the right reaction. I feel like a lot of fans are, I'd probably say like 80 to 20% are like completely against Leao joining Liverpool. What's your thoughts on the player? Do you rate him at all?
For me, I've always kept like an eye on him because I really like AC Milan. They're like my Italian
Yeah,
team.
yeah,
So for me, Leao, bro, I've seen him play games where he's just ripped teams apart.
yeah,
And I always said this: there's certain players who stay at a club too long, and he's one of them guys. I think he should have left 2 years ago. I
yeah,
think if we went for him then, I think under Klopp he would have been amazing. And a lot of people, Slot, it might be maybe he's too wild for him because Slot's very. Look at Robertson, how he slowed him down for him to fit his way of playing, and I
yeah.
think I just want to see Slot give a bit of freedom to the players. You know what I mean? So Liao, is he that type of guy who's going to be disciplined enough to play a system under Slot? And that's the question for me.
Yeah, because for me, the interesting thing about our sort of, I wouldn't quite say new setup, but I feel like the way we're signing certain players, I feel like with our fullbacks, they're the ones that are going to provide the width more than anything else. And I feel like with Liao, that's what he brings to the table. He brings width to the team because he likes to touch that byline. But I have seen him in games where he can drift infield quite well and take shots from distance, and he's got a good technique in those moments as well. So it
Mm-hmm.
would be interesting because looking at Arne Slot's history in terms of how he coached that final, he played with out and out wingers, so he does favor those type of players. And I feel like with Liao, you might have question marks in terms of his tracking back or
Mm-hmm.
being, like you said, discipline in a system.
Yeah.
I feel like there's enough quality to kind of shape that into a player where
Mm-hmm.
he will understand his role in the team. And I also feel like we're going to probably play different formations. I can see us playing, I presented it earlier on, a more of a 4-4-2 sort of diamond. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that role would pretty much
Suit him.
fit everyone in the team to the T
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you've got Kirk and Frimpong that will be given that license to really bomb forward, and then you've got Salah playing in a bit more inside alongside. In my opinion, should be a new striker, but at the minute it's quite unclear if we are going to sign a striker. But if we're not, for example, with the players that we currently have, it will be Diaz or Gakpo that will play alongside him, and I feel like that could be a good combination. And if we, touch wood, do get Verts over the line, him roaming around at number 10 could really do well. So I feel like Leao is not just an out and out winger. I feel like he can play as an inside forward and can even
Mm-hmm.
play as a striker alongside another player or even up top on his own, even though I don't think that'll be his best position. So I feel like he's an interesting profile because he can play different variations on that left side.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that could suit how Arnold Slot would want to deploy his team because we don't normally just buy one player for one position. It's a player that will play, in different positions. So I don't know. Do you feel like we're gonna have a different sort of setup as a team, especially with the likes of Frimpong and Kirkes and Verts joining the club very soon, hopefully.
Um, like when we look at the first season of Slot, he didn't really
Mm.
use the fullbacks at all.
No, no,
You know what I mean? So with Kirkers and Frimpong coming in, it's total sort of back to Klopp sort of
yeah,
doing it. So that's a weird one. I think you know what it was with Slot. He played a cautious year. He just
yeah,
thought I don't want to go there and they take the piss out of me and I'm losing games and I get sacked in my first season.
yeah,
So I reckon he went overcautious. It cost us, I would say, another trophy.
yeah,
game time for certain players and stuff like that. You know, he could have rested certain players in certain games like Southampton and stuff. But I think next season he might think, you know what, I've got a league title under my belt. I'm going to loosen the tie or whatever you want to call it, you know.
Mm.
So maybe I think it's that, bro. I just think he was just being cautious for his first year. I hope so, anyway. Because for me,
Yeah.
sometimes I was a bit bored of our football and how we were playing.
Especially the fullbacks, because that's not what we're used to seeing over
Yeah,
the years,
not
where
seeing that.
our fullbacks bomb down that byline quite a lot.
Yeah, I thought that was like a main threat for us, you know. So with
Yeah.
Frimpong coming in, the best interview I've ever seen from a player signed for us. Like
Yeah.
them videos, bro. I've never seen a guy so enthusiastic to play for
Yeah.
Liverpool Football Club. I can't believe it. It's like this guy, he's so happy to play for us. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, big interview. Fair play to him, man.
Yeah. No, he seems like a character that I feel like he's gonna fit in very well with the squad, and you can see the genuine happiness because I know his dad and his brother are big Liverpool fans as well. So it's like a special moment for him and his family. So I'm excited to see how Frimpong does as well. But in terms of Arne Slot, I feel like this we're probably looking at hindsight, and of course we won the league, but I feel like with the fullbacks. Robertson, hasn't been the same player. He's definitely a player that's lost his sharpness in terms of speed and you know
Mm.
attacking that byline like he used to do. And that's it comes down from age. It comes down from you know being overused and burnt out because we've used him a lot over the years. And I feel like with Trent, there's always there was always question marks in regards to his defensive duty. So he's not going to play that, attacking fullback role anymore because he's more accustomed to being a ball player, coming a bit more inside. So we've got two fullbacks that were pronounced to be attacking fullbacks, but due to age or due to, games being developed over the years, they've played a very different role. So that's probably why it wasn't Arsenal's profile of fullbacks, if that makes sense. Because if you look at Feyenoord, he had different players there as well. So I feel like he's one of those coaches where he will use what he has and try to use it to the best of his ability. And maybe now he's thinking, do you know what? I've got an opportunity to sign Verts. Maybe
Mm.
we got to reshape the way we play because with attacking fullbacks, we've got to find that creativity somehow. We don't have Trent in the team anymore. So if you've
Yeah.
got Ping Pong attacking that byline, it allows Salah to go a bit more inside, which I'm sure he'll be pleased about because it means less tracking back for him. It
Mm-hmm.
means, less, going one on one with the fullback because I feel like he can still do that job, but I feel like he wants to be, on the end of like crosses and trying to increase his goal and assist tally, to try and break as many records as possible. And then with Kirkwood as well, I think he's the more complete fullback where defensively he's very sound, but on an attacking form as well, he's someone that's got great crossing ability, great energy, and he can overlap and underlap. He brings that different
Okay.
dynamic. And so can Frimpong, to be fair. I've seen
Mm-hmm.
Frimpong play for Leverkusen in the Netherlands where he goes on diagonal runs, like he runs infield a lot more as well. And that allows different movement up top. So it's going to be very, very exciting to the how we set up. But I feel like there's one thing missing, and I think that's the striker role.
Mm.
Now, who do you feel like we're going to sign a striker, or do you feel like because we're not able to acquire our prime target, we might wait until next season, unfortunately, or next summer?
Well, there's loads of things with the number 9 situation because for me, it depends on Jota and Darwin. What we doing with them two
Mm,
guys? That's the first thing. And I don't think Darwin deserves to go to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, we'll get a better fee on that. But I reckon he's
yeah.
better than that. You know what I mean? Right now, he's
Mm,
look at his age, bro. He should be playing as a starting 9 somewhere. And going
yeah.
there for me isn't a good move for him. Um, and I think Isaac is the only guy I could put my money on that I would say, yeah, he would come in and he would be whoa. And two goals, like I think on Brian's show earlier, two seasons, 25 goals
Yeah.
each. So I reckon he's the number one guy I would go for. But when you look at the other strikers there, Ozzy, you got
Yeah.
Sesko, you got these guys. You're gonna end up paying 60, 70 million for these guys. It's a lot of money for a
Maybe
guy.
even more.
Even more,
Apparently,
maybe.
they're linked to like 80, 90 million. That's crazy.
Say again, sorry.
Hmm.
What did you
For
say? How much?
I said 80, 90 million for the likes of Ekitike or
Yeah, crazy.
Sesko is a lot of money.
A lot of money.
They're project players. They're not accomplished players, and I feel like we need to sign an established striker now. That is a lot of money for players that might not hit the ground running straight away, or maybe not even do it at all.
Exactly. So for me, because of the Darwin situation we've had with him, we
Yeah,
tried that one. It didn't work, and now is let's get someone in. Look, I'm. If Harry Kane wants to come back to England, he's a striker who would score goals non-stop for us. Uh, he might go further away from Salah in the goal charts, yeah, but at the end of the day, them two together, bro. Oof.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that would be the guy. 2 years, get him in, and then look at the future. Then maybe at the end of the second season for Kane, it's just an
yeah.
idea. But because I think Isaac's going to cost about 110, maybe.
Mm,
Newcastle got
sure.
Champions League. I think if
Yeah.
Newcastle got sixth, seventh, it would have been an easier deal to do. But then you got links to Leao now. So what's going on?
Mm.
Bro? It's just fucking crazy season.
It's not very clear, and that's the bit of a concern because the striker market for me is a bit of a strange one. You've got certain players that, well, regarded as available, they're getting deals concluded. So you've got the likes of Isak, you mentioned, is not going to leave Newcastle this season. I don't see anyone signing him. Alvarez, as much as we want him, I feel like he's happy to be in Spain. I don't think he
Yeah,
wants to leave
yeah, yeah.
anytime soon. And then you've got Gyökeres, who's probably the one that's available right now, but he's strongly being linked with, a move to United, and he
Hmm.
could be reunited with, his former coach in Ruben Amorim. Osimhen, I'm not entirely sure what's happening with him. I thought he was on the verge of signing for Al Hilal, but now I'm hearing mixed opinions or mixed reports that he could that deal was broken down all of a sudden. So that's a player that we could look at, but it's not a clear sort of pathway because he might have interest elsewhere. So there aren't many sort of established strikers available out there. You had your sort of project players or young up and coming strikers like your Liam Delap's, but he's gone to Chelsea now.
Hmm.
As I mentioned earlier on, Ekitike, he's available for 84, 85 million.
No
I
way.
like him. He's a good player, but that's a lot of money for Ekitike in my opinion. And Sesko is available for apparently 90 odd million, which for me is outrageous. And I don't know
Yeah,
Arsenal are trying to what kind of deal they're trying to get done because I think they're this team that's strongly linked to him. So
yeah.
striker market is not very blessed right now.
It's
So
not. It's not. It's amazing. 2025 with the
I
amount of
know.
footballers out there. We cannot remember the old days. The old days,
Oh yeah,
a guy would sit down, the manager think, you know what, we've got 10 beauties here we can pick.
yeah,
Which one do you want? You know what I mean? Now you're thinking, God, there's only one guy out there really we can go for. Because I'm not going to
it's
celebrate if
crazy.
we get Sesko or the Etikike. I ain't going to be,
No,
oh, we got the final piece of the jigsaw, after getting works in.
oh definitely not.
Yeah. So for me, I'm on that level now where, because the Darwin talk, bro, I am so sick and tired of the topic of Darwin Nunes that
Yeah,
I want a striker now who's going to get. I said this earlier today.
yeah.
If a striker don't get consistent game time where he knows he's playing on full 90, that guy don't know if he's coming or going. He's not scoring goals. I'll tell you that now.
Mm, yeah,
And Harry Kane, he will be probably one of the second, third name on the team sheet if he played for us, for
that's
example.
yeah,
And that's the difference, bro. And for me, I think this one's deserve a goal scoring number 9 now.
yeah.
Um, yeah, man. That's
You
it.
never
I think.
know, Kane. You never know because the rumor is that he does have a release clause. I think it's 50 million, but
Okay.
that's the rumor. I think I don't know if it's specific to English clubs, but that is the release clause apparently. And the only
He,
issue now is that even though it's a release clause, I feel like Bayern Munich will do the utmost best to
yeah,
avoid
yeah.
any business happening between the two clubs because of the throwing
Works.
vert still. So.
Bro, they're going well. I've seen Bayern fan pages having a go at
Yeah,
Liverpool, man. That wow. I was like,
yeah,
yo, these guys never talk about us.
Yeah,
Like really, and Man City, I've seen Man City fans, Arsenal fans,
yeah,
even Everton, bro. I've seen an Everton fan, uh, just sort of dissing us making moves, man. This works deal, it's a marquee signing, and that's what you call a
yeah.
marquee
He
signing, where other
is.
fans are so pissed off that you've got them. I
Yeah,
think Wirtz is a top player, but I
yeah,
think there's more to come from him.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
another thing,
definitely.
that's
Yeah,
a good thing. So it's the fee now, hopefully. I just like I read I heard a German report today in German, and they were saying that the last figures and everything are just need sorting out, but the medical and everything should be done ASAP. That they're talking like he's a Liverpool player. Let's put it that way.
okay.
And this is a German news people. I think they're a bit good. They're losing their star boy to England,
Yeah,
and they've got Harry Kane, the England captain at Bayern Munich, bro. So what the fuck is it's 1-1 now? You know what I mean?
yeah. The roles are switched. We've got each other's star players like that.
Yeah,
So if there is a release clause for Harry Kane, we're already hated right now. So why not just go that extra mile and get the accomplished number 9 that we're all dreaming for right now? So that would be the best case scenario. But yeah, I think
look, he's on he's on
Wolverhampton.
about 400,000 a week or something.
That's the thing. The chance of he's not even the stumbling block. It's the salary and all that sort of stuff
Salary.
that comes with it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that salary
yeah,
is big, and he's Bayern. Munich is a nice city to live, and he's
yeah,
and he's probably after being in London all his life, he's thinking, you know what, I'm enjoying this now. He's won a league
yeah.
title. He's won a first trophy.
Exactly. He's just won silverware for the first time in his career, so
Yeah,
I don't think he'll be in a rush to leave anytime
leave.
soon. But
That's what I think.
yeah, but
That's the only thing with him.
we can dream. But who knows who the striker will be? Because I don't see a lot of options out there. If I'm being brutally honest, and I don't even mean to be rude when I say this out loud. I don't want to see Darwin Nunes being given another season. So I'm seeing some fans
Uh,
suggesting that with Verts coming in, he'll be unable to unlock Darwin
oh,
Nunes, and I'm just like, I'm really bored of that
look,
narrative now. Like,
it don't really matter though. You know why? Because for me, we've seen in the last season that even though Darwin Nunes got an assist against PSG, got a goal and won a penalty against Southampton.
yeah,
We didn't see him against fucking PSG or Newcastle in
yeah,
that week where we might have thought, you know what, maybe it's this time of the season for him to step up and do his part for us guys. And what
yeah,
happened? Slot straight away started Jota. So for
yeah,
me, the Darwin Nunes, he could score 10 goals in pre-season.
yeah,
It would be sold the day before this window
yeah.
closes. It's
It's
as
true.
simple as that. It's as simple as
He's
that.
he's not he's not the profile. He's not the player that the coach wants. So when the coach is not pleased or happy with certain players, he's going to try and upgrade on them, and that's simply how it is. And I don't even mean to kind of say out loud that Darwin Nunes is a bad player. I think in a different league he's cooking. Like he
Yeah,
has
yeah.
the skill set to do well elsewhere. I just feel like
Mm-hmm.
with him being at Liverpool for 3 years, it just hasn't worked out. He hasn't
Yeah.
improved in my opinion. I just
I
feel like
think.
it's probably the best time for us to kind of part ways and let him, do his own thing as well because,
Mhm.
you don't want it to be where his career is impacted because of his time at Liverpool where he hasn't gone to
Yeah,
plan.
I don't
He
want that to
does
happen.
have a lot of he does have a lot of quality. He's very young. He's still in his mid-20s, so he can go on and definitely fulfill, his, not potential because I feel like he's gone past for potential, but I feel
It's
like
past that,
he
yeah.
can definitely be the player that, we all see in a Uruguayan shirt, for example. So there's
Hmm.
definitely a player there.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I don't want him to exactly what you said. Like, I don't want him to ruin his whole football career because of his stay at Liverpool. You know what I mean? I don't want that to happen. If he leaves us, he's the one player I would say I wish him well. I hope he smashes it. Trent,
Yeah,
maybe not, but yeah, but Darwin Nunes, yeah, man. If he goes to Spain, I hope he wins the La Liga for Atletico. If he
yeah,
goes there, for example, you know what I mean?
yeah. That'll be a
But
good
the
fit to
agenda
be
is
fair.
big. The whole topic has been too big for us to really go on about it all the time, bro. It don't
Yeah,
stop the Darwin topic, you know.
yeah,
I've seen him score his first goal for Liverpool. It was in Leipzig. It was a friendly, and
yeah.
it was a penalty. Actually, I got it on my phone, man. He scored 4 goals that day, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
in his first game. So I've seen him play a few times live.
Yeah.
If I'm, what position did you play when you played football, or when you play football?
Oh, that's just striker.
Okay,
Funny enough.
striker. So you want a guy when you're playing striker, bro. Imagine you got
Yeah.
a few friends of yours who also play nine, and what happens? You go training and everything, and then the manager says, "All right, Ozzie, you're starting Saturday in the game,"
Yeah.
and then next week he says, "Ozzie, you're starting again."
Yeah.
And what happens? Your friends are thinking, "You know what? I ain't getting a chance here." And then what
Yeah.
happens? Your manager chucks him on, and he's like, "I can't find my fucking feet." And
Yeah.
that's how I
It
see
happens.
football. It happens to strikers. The number one
Yeah.
player who needs to play every game, start every game to get into that zone of scoring
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
And I think Darwin, I would love to play in a team with Darwin because of the way I know how he would want the ball and how he would
Yeah.
score and stuff like that. Because for me, that's how I like used to play number 10 and stuff.
Yeah.
Darwin is for me the best striker I would love to play with. It's like I just know he would just run onto it, even if he might miss.
Yeah.
I know he's going to try and get it.
Yeah.
So
That's the always thing about Darwin is he's always got good movement. Like he always finds, you know, ability to create chances where he's gone on great runs and all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
It's just the finishing for me. He's not been consistent enough. That's the only thing with Darwin Nunes. So that's why I feel like there is a player there. I just don't feel like it's suited for Liverpool, and I don't think he's suited for the Premier League. I
oh
think
okay,
it's just the speed of the way the game's played here, and I think the physicality, you
mm,
know, can sort of affect his game because he's naturally that aggressive player anyway. But I feel like when you merge his game and the speed of the Premier League game, I just don't feel like it goes well because you've probably seen over the years the top strikers in the Premier League have always been strikers that are calm and cold in front
yeah,
of goal.
yeah, in
He's,
the box. Hmm.
very aggressive, very,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
guns blazing. You can't be that type of striker and be
Hmm.
a consistent goal scorer as well. Like as an
Mm.
impact sub, that's a great player to have off the bench.
Yeah,
But
true.
I don't think he accepts that role. I don't think he wants to do that role anymore. And
Yeah,
that was quite evident in the last few months of this season
yeah.
because that ended up being his role. You mentioned where he's had a good game and then, the coach has gone for Jota instead. Like that impacts your confidence. And
Hmm.
being a striker, it is a confidence thing because
It is.
once you have that back of your manager, you can go on a goalless streak, but if your coach is still playing you because you're putting in the effort, then it gives you that validation. Oh, do you know what? I'm not scoring, but my coach believes in me. If you're scoring a hat trick, like you mentioned, you can do what you can do. Score a worldy type of goal. But if you're not in favor of the coach's ideas or the way he wants to play, it doesn't really make a
It
difference
really
what you
matter.
do. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so that's why I just feel like it's best to part ways with the player.
yep.
And if it was to be sold, whoever comes in has to be Arne Slot's striker. It's not going to be another attacker that we can rotate with. It has to be the guy that comes into the team and leads the
Mm.
line forward. So that's why it's like I don't even know who that guy is right now because there
Yeah.
aren't many players out there. A lot of fans saying that maybe Verts as a false nine, it can
I don't
work,
want
but
that.
I don't want. I feel like
I
you're
don't want
taking a lot of elements of his game away by
that. He'll
making
get
him be
battered,
that
bro.
player.
He will get battered.
Against certain teams, he will definitely get clamped. So it's not
Yeah,
going
man.
to, and it's going to make us look bad as well. We've signed
Hmm.
a player of this kind of valuation, but we've not played him in his natural position. Like his
It's
natural
simple.
position is number 10, or as on the left side, but a player that comes in forward, kind of like what Coutinho used to do for us as well. So
Hmm.
you've got to use them in a more sort of clever way rather than an orthodox striker or number 10. I feel like give him the freedom to roam from central to the left side. That's going to
Hmm.
be his game, not
That's going to be his
as a
game.
false nine.
Not as a false nine for
No,
me.
no.
He likes hovering at the edge of the box,
Yeah,
and he's a hoverer. Like he's that type of guy. So for me,
yeah,
we need a striker. Do you remember when Diaz beat his guy, squared the ball
mm,
to Darwin, and he shot first time and scored against? I think it was Southampton, bro.
mm,
It was the first time in the whole season where our wingers beat their guy and squared
yeah,
ball to the number 9, and we scored.
mm,
That
yeah,
is for me centre forward football, bro. So what happens when Wirtz comes in
yeah,
is we're gonna get that sort of situation where he'll
Yeah,
beat his guy, little square ball, bang. Are we gonna feed our number 9 like that, bro? Because for me, I don't
yeah,
think because of Salah and Diaz, they're inverted wingers. Like Diaz is playing on the left, where he should be playing on the right, and Salah should be playing on the left wing. But we do it
yeah.
the other way around. Hence why I think our 9 suffers.
Mm,
You know what I mean? It isn't like, you know what, they're the focal point and stuff.
yeah.
And that's the only reason why I worry about if we do get a 9 in, how we're gonna play it.
Mm,
It's a weird one. So that's why I think we might not even buy a striker. Do you understand what I mean? Because we're not
yeah,
really linked 100% concrete that we're gonna, like say with Kirkus, Frimpong, and Wirtz.
yeah.
No strikers really being concrete. Like say, yeah, that's the guy we're gonna get. You know?
No, it's a valid point, especially because I feel like with attacking fullbacks in our team now, I think the 4-4-2 diamond formation will suit everyone in the squad currently.
Uh
I
huh.
feel
Uh huh.
like, let's say Diaz does stay and Gakpo, stays as well. You know, it will be one of the two alongside Salah and Jota. So those four will be your two strikers, if that makes sense. But with the strikers, they're not going to need to play an orthodox kind of striker role. One will go slightly out wide, one will be in the middle, and vice versa. The way how it used to be back in the days where some striker will drop deep and the other will go a bit more further up. I feel like it's going to be a bit more of a sideways sort of formation where one goes a bit more on the channels to help the other guy, and then you got Verts coming inside the pockets and trying to be the player on the edge of the box and trying to score from there onwards. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if there isn't a striker out there, we have to come up with a different way of playing. And I feel like, I don't mind Diaz staying for another season. I know some fans are a bit like iffy about it. He's got
Mm-hmm.
2 years left. So even if he plays for one more season, his
Mm-hmm.
valuation still should be, at a good level. And if it is a Saudi team, for example, they're not going to reduce the amount on the checkbook. They'll still pay 70, 80 million next year, in my opinion. So
You reckon?
I feel like there's no point of just selling Diaz for the sake of selling Diaz. It needs
Yeah.
to be where it has to be for an adequate replacement. And I'm not on board of signing, you know, there are certain players that I do really like the look of that I feel like are young and up and coming wingers.
Uh-huh.
But then I feel like if we are going to sign an up and coming winger to replace Diaz, we 100% have to sign a striker as well. It can't just be one player. Because with Leao, for example, of course, the topic of the show, he can do both roles, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
If
But if
needed.
it's not him,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's not him, there isn't really a lot of profiles out there that can be a winger, but can also play up top or, as part of a two
Yeah.
strike force, or as a lone striker as well. So, it's a
True.
very, very weird market, but
I think
hopefully we'll get some
Diaz.
clarification.
I think the only thing I see with the Diaz thing is like this, bro. The wages he's on is really low.
Very low it is,
He
yeah.
wants to get paid now, and he's
Yeah,
thinking, okay, are Liverpool going to offer me a new contract? I don't think so. So what I'll
yeah.
do, I'll go to another club. I wish him the best. That guy gives 100%, bro. I've never.
Ah, right.
He gives 100%. I don't give a damn, man.
Mm.
This season, I reckon he played his part of us winning the league title.
Yeah, he did.
Started off real well, had a big gap where he wasn't scoring, and then he finished
Mhm.
it off nicely. So
Yeah,
for me, Diaz is a very important part of the team. I wouldn't even say squad because for me, Slot really likes Diaz. He was playing
yeah,
big all the games.
yeah,
So yeah, he was a main starter for. It was him, Gapco, and Salah really, isn't it? The front
yeah.
three.
I agree.
Yeah, so Diaz is a major sort of player for Slot anyway. So it's a bit of a weird one. I reckon give the guy a pay increase by
Yeah,
at least 100 grand at least because he's on
he
about
deserves it. He deserves
easily
it.
deserves it,
Yeah,
and that's why I don't understand about football sometimes. The guy's getting paid like 50 grand, something really low, and
yeah,
that in football world is really low. And then you got
yeah.
players like I don't know, Kie's 160 odd.
Yes.
Yeah, and Keys is not really even getting a look in, but he's getting
Yeah,
paid
he's getting
triple
paid
the
less.
amount.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
That makes sense to me. So for
No.
me, Diaz either give him a new contract, another 2 years, that's four,
Yeah,
and make him earn 200 a month, a week. Sorry, why not?
yeah.
People are going to think, nah, get rid of him. His work rate, he's the best in the Premier League for me of keeping hold of the ball.
Yeah.
And that is very valuable when you're under pressure and you want to kick the ball. He'll get it. He'll get the ball for 5 to 10 seconds and we get all
Yeah.
sorted. And that's the part, he's a valuable part of football. 12th man told me about Diaz, man. Because 12th
Mm.
man really likes him, innit? So,
Yeah, he does. Now, you mentioned that he came on the show last week as well, and yeah, I feel like Diaz. For me, it's not the quality of the player that's in question. It's just the way we all Liverpool fans know how FSG operate. When a player hits a certain age bracket, it- they don't tend to give big contract. I say they don't tend to because obviously they have given it to Salah and Van Dijk, but
mhm.
generally they don't really give big contracts to players approaching the late 20s in that manner. So
Yeah, but that's
I
cost
don't I
us.
don't think it's a footballing situation. I think it's
Okay.
more of a financial decision from FSG where they're thinking maybe we can sign a young and up and coming player, save some salary and all that sort of stuff, and then sign a player that will play in the team for years to come. Whereas Diaz, like you said, he's at that age where he deserves to get paid now. He is
Yeah.
at that age where he's probably got one big contract left, and then after that,
Hmm.
it depends on his fitness and where he is in his life and where he is in his career. So I feel like he fully deserves a new contract. But the notion or the vibe that we're getting is that that's not what the club, are aligned with. They don't look like they're going to give him another contract. So that's,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that looks like the writing's on the wall. He's got aspirations to play for Barca. We're
Yeah.
not willing to work with Barca because they offered us. I think the rumor was that they approached us and wanted to offer around 35 or 40 million, including add-ons, which is a
Oh,
crazy amount.
mm.
Um,
It's
so
a
we
fee
were
we
just
paid
like,
for him, really, isn't it?
yeah, basically how much we paid.
Yeah.
We paid around 40, 45. So
Oh, okay.
that's what that's what they were trying to match. But the player has evolved since that time. He
Uh-huh.
he, he is a much better player than when he came from Porto. So for
Yeah.
me, deserves a new contract, but I feel like it looks like he will be moved on more for financial reasons. I don't think personally I don't see it as a footballing decision because there aren't many football players that can replace Diaz in this team. I've mentioned Rafael Leão. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but neither is Diaz. So these type
Mm.
of players,
True.
they're not always going to be 10 out of 10
And,
every week. They're going to have
yeah.
ups and downs. It's just the role of a winger or role of an attacker. You're going to
Mm.
have that, those phases in the season. So but yeah, let's see what happens. We're still very early in the transfer window. Of course, Liverpool have been very active in comparison to other teams, but
Man City,
hopefully,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, man, see, they've not
Aunt
wasted,
Nori.
any time at all.
Yeah, Aunt Nori came into 31 million. I'm
It's a
happy
good
we
deal for
didn't
you
get
guys.
him. He's a good little player, but for
He
me,
is.
nah. Yeah.
He wouldn't fit in what we wanted. I think Kirk is probably the right fit for us. It's
Yeah,
all
for me,
about
yeah.
fitting into the way we teams play and the system. Like even Turkey, like I rate Turkey, but there'll still be question marks in terms of does he fit Pep's way of playing football. So I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like
the
for
thing.
Liverpool, I think he'd succeed at Liverpool. But obviously, he's going there now. So
Yeah.
that's his decision. And Ryan is a great signing. I rate
You
that player
reckon?
a lot. Yeah,
Oh,
Ryan
okay.
is a baller.
He's
He's a
he's
very, very
okay.
good player.
He's
Sorry?
okay. He's
You don't
okay
rate
for
him
me.
that highly?
Nah, I think I watched AC Milan quite a lot. But that season
Yeah,
he scored a lot of goals and stuff like that. So
yeah.
but he isn't my cup of tea, but we'll see.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we'll have to see in the Premier League because I feel like that's going to define, if was he the right fit because he's
Mm,
a player that can play in a six, can play as an eight, can even play a bit more further up as well. So I think he's a good profile for that team,
okay.
especially with Kevin De Bruyne leaving now. I don't know where he's going to end up going, but
Yeah.
he's not a
Really
light replacement, but he's a player that can, know,
play.
probably rotate with Turkey, for example, in those advanced positions. So it's going to be interesting,
Yeah.
nonetheless. But JK, thank you so
Yes.
much for coming on the show. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your support as always.
No, good to have a
And yeah,
chat,
I'm
bro.
sure we'll be talking about, hopefully we'll get some strong rumors to top strikers in the coming weeks because I think that's the area we definitely need to strengthen. But big up yourself for coming. Appreciate your time as always.
Take care, bro.
Cool. Take care. Big up JK as always. Now, let's see if we've got some comments here. Um, Azrak, big up. So Azrak, he says, "Do you think we will sell or keep Harvey Elliott? Um, and the reports are true. We'll get 50 million. Is that correct? 50 million. I remember seeing 40 million being the sort of the ball mark for Harvey Elliott. 50 is a great deal if you can get 50 million for him. I know there was rumors circling surrounding a deal involving Eze at Crystal Palace, so like a swap deal. I think that sounded more like a FIFA career mode sort of transfer rather than a real life one. But I think unfortunately the writing is on the wall for Harvey Elliott. You know, he's made a few comments saying he doesn't want to waste, his best years on the bench at the club, even though this is his boyhood club. But you got to respect his decision. You got to respect, his sort of stance in terms of where he is at in his life and where he is in his career, because very young and he knows that he probably needs to move elsewhere in order to fulfill his potential. So yeah, I do expect him to leave this summer. 50 million. I would be happy 40. I think that was the fee that we were all expecting, but 50 million, I would be very, very pleased with that. Mandy's asking, when do you think the Milos Kerkez deal will get done? I think we'll hear some sort of rumblings, hopefully by end of the week, in my opinion, because that deal looks like it's pretty much, you know, done in terms of negotiating the structure and then personal terms. Personal terms were agreed quite a while back, to be honest with you. So, um, yeah, it's going to be very interesting when that will be announced. But I think it'll be announced. I think, if I was to be honest, I think if the Vert deal is closer than we think, then I think Vert deal will be announced first, and then Kerkers will be the first signing. But that's just something I would rather see, because I feel like we've still got a bit of uncertainty regarding Verts. I think, safe to say that the Kirkers deal seems like it's, a full on conclusion. So I think we want the Verts deal so we can, relax a little bit and then, do the other formalities and unveil Kirkers as the third signing. So that would be the perfect scenario for us fans, I guess. Uh, Rajib Fenting says, if we keep Jota, we don't need a striker because he's a natural goal scorer and he will get us 25 goals a season. He will. Don't get me wrong. In terms of what he brings to the table, in terms of ability, he is that sort of striker. He is a natural goal scorer. He is a player that's capable of scoring 25 goals. However, I don't think you know it's not the ability that we're questioning. We're questioning his availability. That's the concern more than anything else when it comes to Diogo Jota, unfortunately. So I think, I don't think he'll leave unless, we get a bid from Saudi or anything to that nature. But I do feel like he will be regarded more as a backup striker for whoever that new striker will be. I'm hoping we do get a striker. If not, then he's going to be, one of four attackers that will be challenging for a place in the team. But once we sign Verts and Kerkez, it'll be interesting to see who that next player is, because if it is a striker, then we'll know how the team will set up. Is it your traditional number 9 that holds the ball up, or is it a wide forward that can play as a striker? That profile is going to define how we play next season. It might be a false 9 again, for all we know. So let's see who we end up signing. I'm confident, and I'll say I'm positive that we will get a new attacker in. Who it is, I can't really pinpoint at this stage. Kieran says, "Hi guys, big up yourself, Kieran. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. I see we have a call in the back line, even though I wasn't expecting callers, but I'm going to bring him on, and it is JP. JP, are you there?
Hey, how you going, man?
I'm good, bro. How you doing?
I'm good. I can't complain.
Yeah, the floor is yours, my friend. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, no, I just came on, watching your stream, watching you for a little while now. And I saw some contact, so I saw a chance to come on the show and
Appreciate it.
give you a little love, a little likes, like the channel people. very good content, and it supports the guys who doing the stream. So we appreciate if you just bring the likes up. Just heard you talking to the last caller in terms of the way Liverpool going to play next season. And I think part of what we need is to really get our transfers over the line so that we will be in that kind of mold now where we will be able to compete with the big teams across the world. If you look at Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG now in the fold, I think you could say we are literally, I would say, behind those guys due to star power. And somebody like a Wirtz and Kirkes with Frimpong coming in, it will give us the chance to compete for the major honors with these guys. Remember, we just lost Trent to Real Madrid. So we they actually took one of our best players, so they bolster even more. So I think now, as much as I rate Harvey Elliott and I respect his talent and stuff, I think he's not the caliber of player to take us to that kind of dominant level just as yet. I believe like if we could have speed up his years, put him in a time machine and let him grow 4 more years. So he's 25, 26 in his prime. I think then he would fit the mold of a Liverpool player. But ever since he got that injury with the broken leg, I don't see him as the same. Yeah. So I think once we get Wirtz and once we get Pickers and we probably squeeze in a little striker and probably a centre back, we'll be able to compete with the best sides in the world. And that's where I will feel more confident and more comfortable to retain the title.
If you could choose that striker and that centre back, who would it be?
Realistic or dream?
You can give me both scenarios so I can see which players you aspire to see in a Liverpool shirt. You can tell me both.
I would say let me see. I would say Isaac would be dream. Alongside Wirtz. I could see us retaining the Premier League with Isaac in front and Wirtz behind. But as I said before, I do think Liverpool will be splashing over 200 million on two players, right? I'm not seeing that. And Schlotterbeck from Borussia Dortmund, or I saw Hato from Ajax, just because both of them could play left back and stopper, just to give cover. So they would be ideal. I think the style that Slot wants to play, I don't think a DM is needed. Although a lot of Liverpool fans calling for DM, which I could agree to just have a little more control in the midfield, because sometimes when we go up against the physical teams, we tend to lose the battle in the midfield. So you would want to have a kind of physical type player. But I think what Slot trying to do is more go for the more pressing and more control, more kind of pressing control. And I think we could get away with not getting a DM this season. But I think the other parts of the pieces for us got like Wirtz, Kirkes, probably a striker and another centre back, because I don't think Slot trusts Kwanzaa. And I think the only reason why Kwanzaa is sticking around is because we don't have a reliable other centre back, because Gomez is always injured. So I personally believe just get over the Wirtz and the Kirkes. Me personally, because I want the Wirtz deal to cross the line, I find it taking too long. Too much bids being rejected and these kind of stuff. So it kind of giving the Liverpool fans a little bit of anxiety. But from what I'm hearing, the positivity is there that Liverpool just trying to see how Leverkusen trying to see how much more money they could squeeze about us is not a player not willing to come. So I mean, give them their money. We getting a quality player, and let's see what's going on. But I truly believe once we get Wirtz over the line with Kirkers, if we could sneak in a striker, I feel more confident that we would retain the title rather than we not getting those guys across the line.
No, that's a fair point. I do feel like the midfield one is an interesting role because I don't think it's a priority role at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at the team, I think that the centre back is definitely important because with Joe Gomez, I do rate the player, but he's not always available. And with Quansah, he's shown a lot of frailty this season where even when he's played, he hasn't performed at a good level. And it's a funny one because with him, you'll watch like a highlight of the match, and it's his errors that have led to those goals. But if you're watching for the full 90 minutes, he's actually not done that bad of a job. It's just that in those crucial moments, he's been at fault, whether it's an own goal or conceding a penalty. So that's the concern. I feel like the best thing for Quansah would be on paper a loan move because I do feel like there's a player that has potential there.
Yeah.
But I feel like at the same time, the club will try and cash in on him. If someone was to offer us between 30 to 40 or 50 million pounds, we'd accept it all day long. I think we'd accept it. Maybe we'll have a buyback clause in some shape or form, but I think we'd sell it to reinvest in the squad. I feel like we need a centre back that can give us something different, but can also give us a bit of experience as well. Because I know Schlotterbeck is a great shout. The only concern I would have is I think he's picked up an injury.
He has.
Time, so I don't know how close he is to Fort Benners, but I think he was available for like 40 million. That was the quality price, so he'd be a fantastic addition. Hato I do like because, like you mentioned, he can play centre back, but can also play left back, and in that centre back role, he can help us play a back three as well if we need to do it during games. So he gives us that flexibility from a tactical point of view. There are other names out there, but I know there's a name he's not really flavor of the month is Gay because he's available at a top price. Not really my cup of tea. I think for us also, I haven't even mentioned it. Konate, we need to get that contract.
You have to sort out the
because that's anxiety right there as well. Because if we go past this window and he hasn't signed the contract, that's a missed opportunity because I love Konate, but if he's not staying at the club, he has to be sold in this window. We need to cash in on him. I don't want him to. I don't want him to lose to Real Madrid like we did with Trent. That is a real life scenario that could happen again. I don't want to see that happening. The striker market is a funny one because I feel like there's two categories. There's accomplished strikers who unfortunately aren't attainable, and then you've got your project players. But I don't know, like you mentioned, Ekitike, Sesko. Ekitike I really like, but he wouldn't give me pure confidence going into next season. I will still have reservations. Oh, is he going to be the gunman for us? Because I think his all-round game is really good, but finishing-wise, he's a good finisher, but he's not a killer.
Not yet. So it's a project. It's for the future.
Yes.
And right now I sympathize. I agree with that comment you made there because where I am now with Liverpool, I see us having a 2-year window of success before Van Dijk and Salah legs go and they gone, right? And that is why in this two-year window, we have to try and maximize how many trophies we could win with these guys to stamp their legacy on Liverpool and our future, right?
Yeah.
So a project player coming in now would, for me, kind of hinder the progression and to maximize that's why a player like Wirtz, adding a player like Wirtz to Salah and Van Dijk's we could say last two prime or I wouldn't say they're in their prime, but still have quality as two established players. Me personally, I think both of them have a year and a half again. So Salah has, me personally, one more good season before we start to see a little decline. Van Dijk could see out his contract because the way his style is, his play is more controlled and more relaxed, and he's more
Doesn't use his speed
yeah,
at all.
right. So so I'm seeing one more good year with Salah and two with Van Dijk, and because Wirtz is coming in now, it will take off the pressure off of Salah to be that talisman from us, because we saw in the middle of the season when the team started to figure us out and started to double up Salah. You see what happened. There's no coincidence that since the turn of the year, Liverpool performances has dropped because a lot of teams were saying just double Salah and the rest of the guys might not deliver, right? It's just we had a good buffer with our good start and that kind of stuff and things, so we will end up to cross the finish line. But for me, what I think will happen with Wirtz is that they will have teams being a little more honest. So if they double up Salah, then they have to worry about Wirtz being the danger man. So they will have to play us a little more honestly, and that's where I think we'll be able to be more dominant in games. But for me, as I said before, I'm not really too much liking the project because I want to dominate. Me personally, I believe right about now, Barcelona, well, not much Barcelona. I think we can handle Barcelona. But I think Real Madrid is getting stronger, City is getting stronger, and PSG is, well, the team to beat right about now, right? So I think we would be like fourth or fifth in that pecking order. If I am going up against those teams, would I feel I'm the favorite? No. But if we get those kind of caliber players, we get that Gutman up front, we get Wirtz, we get Kirkes, I could be feeling confident. Yeah, I could beat Real Madrid, but I will go toe to toe with them. So
Because those players, they bring fear factor to the opponents as well.
Yeah.
And that's what we've lacked over the years. We've always had good, accomplished team players, but you have to have that kind of player that is not a maverick, because that's not really how Verts is, but someone that's going to really stand out. And you've got to put in a shift to try and stop that player from having any impact on the team. So Verts is definitely that game changer for me. If you can add an Isak, that type of caliber of a striker, we've completed the puzzle there, because that is what we're lacking in our team. And then other areas where we feel like we can strengthen, like the midfield, it doesn't have to be addressed this summer. Because I was analyzing the squad the other day. If we were to play like a double pivot, you've got McAllister, Gravenberch, Jones, Endo, and then Basic, who comes in as well. You've got 5 good midfielders that can do a good job there.
Yeah.
And then in terms of our advanced midfielders, we've got plenty of options there as well. I feel like we're going to play a little bit different next season, if I'm being honest. I see us playing more of a 4-4-2 diamond. I feel like we're going to play with Salah being more inside alongside a striker, or if we can't get that striker, it will be Gakpo, or if Diaz ends up staying, it could be Diaz as well. So that's the role, especially with the profile players that we're getting. Kirkers and Frimpong, for me, they're just going to control their flanks. That's going to be their role, to kind of occupy the flanks, whether it's from an attacking point of view or defensively. Defensively, probably not as much, but more attackingly, controlling the way we want to play. We will control the game. We will control the tempo through these players. So it's exciting. It's exciting times. But us Liverpool fans, we haven't been blessed over the years, because we always analyze gaps in the squad. I always feel like we've always fallen short. We haven't, ticked all the boxes, or we haven't got the complete squad going into next season. So I'm hoping this time round, that can be changed, because the Vert signing is completely different. We're not used to signing a marquee player like that. So I'm hoping, FSG have, heard the music now, and they know that, we've got to add these players, and we've got to try and have a complete squad now, because
last signing like Wirtz was Torres.
Yeah, I think so.
People was telling me that Salah and Van Dijk were, but Salah and Van Dijk were not established with the Salahs and Van Dijk they know now.
No.
Club kind of developed them to be the world class
Oh,
players,
fact.
and they continued. So they were like you see, like how we brought in Szoboszlai and McAllister. They
Yeah.
were like players like that. I think Van Dijk was a little more.
We really thought about signing Salah. They were
Yeah,
saying he's a Chelsea reject.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
wasn't given like a
yeah,
proper,
yeah. When Salah and
reputation.
Mane came in the same window, we were like,
Yeah,
both of them are the same,
yeah,
kind of same caliber and that kind of stuff. So the
exactly.
last time I felt like this was when Liverpool signed Torres, because I remember
Yeah,
Torres was the one that Torres was the Yamala. Torres, he was Yamala of Spain in that time. I remember
yeah,
I was hearing talk about Torres going to Barcelona
yeah.
that season. And when I heard my friends telling me that Liverpool getting Torres, I say, how did we do that? How did we pull that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
so
wasn't even a big deal. It was like
yeah.
20 odd million as well.
Yeah, I was like very confused, because Torres was the young lad. He was El
Yeah,
Nino for Spain,
yeah.
and he was the big striker coming up. So I was very, very confused as to how whatever Rafael Benitez said, or the Spanish influence thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm hoping to get Wirtz, because it's feeling like that, and I think
Yeah.
we could go and retain the title if we get him across the line, because he is exceptionally good.
No, I totally agree. But JP, appreciate you
Oh,
coming on the show. Great to chop
big
out
up.
with you. And
Yeah,
I'm sure
man.
we'll speak again very soon. Thank you for
Yeah,
coming
buddy.
on.
Take care. Nice for having me.
Take care.
All right.
You too.
Bye.
I see we have another call at the back. We've turned this into a calling show today, which, I'm all for it, to be fair. And it is Bat Liverpool. Bat Liverpool, are you there?
Yeah, Ozzy, how are you?
I'm good, bro. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Talk to me. What's
Okay,
on your mind?
yeah, I want to start by talking about people that are talking about Luis Diaz.
Yes.
The honest truth there is, I just want us to be very realistic and honest. Liverpool doesn't want to sell Luis Diaz,
Hmm.
and the people thinking that Barcelona is going to cough out 80 million euro or 85 million euro to come and buy Luis Diaz is like saying that I can just fly to the sky like a bird. That thing will not happen for
Not
a
happening.
28 years old player.
Yes.
Even Liverpool itself cannot sign a player, even when a player is at 27. Liverpool is still looking at it. Oh, are we going to sign this player at 27? Even if the person is Lionel Messi, to cough out that money.
Yeah.
So if it's Barcelona, it's not going to happen. But the question is, let us consider Saudi Arabia. Most of these teams, most of these players, they don't want to go to Saudi Arabia. They feel they still have unfinished business in Europe. And this is something that will come to someone like Luis Diaz's mind, playing the Champions League and stuff like that. And if you look at Luis Diaz, he's so chill. He's not pushing for a move. In as
No.
much as they are talking to other people. And Liverpool is seeing advantage in him. One, this guy is just getting 55,000. If we sell him to sign another player, we are giving that player not less than 150. That's number one. Number two,
Yeah.
this guy has improved. He's one of the players who has improved under Arne Slot, scoring 17 goals in all competitions, 17 goals and 8 assists, 25 GA in 50 games, which is either a goal or an assist in 2 games, which means he has improved. And if you go to the world, if you check in Europe, getting a left winger that will replace Luis Diaz is hard. If you want to improve that squad, people are saying Rafael Leao, this one, that one. You are talking about Premier League. So getting a left winger who is going to play left wing, center forward, even sometimes play as a number 10 is hard. So I
And
don't
they have to
see
play the striker role as well, because that's what Luis Diaz, he played left wing and he played up front last year. So you got to cover 2 roles for us.
So
And they're not easy
removing
to
that experience and that type of attacker in a team that have won the league, I don't see Liverpool making that mistake. That's number one. Number two, in terms of Elliott will go. This is World Cup year. He has been playing under 21 for ages. For the past 2 to 3 seasons, Elliott has been in under 21. If you go to England squad, you are going to see what's the name of this guy, this midfielder from Crystal Palace. Most of those guys
Wharton.
are 21. Yeah, most of those guys are 21, 22, 20. The same age with him. They are playing in England national team. So I think this is a World Cup year where he would like to showcase his talents. So 100%, I feel he's going to leave. And I feel any bid within 40 million pounds, Liverpool will accept. Number 3 is Darwin Nunes. Bro, Nunes will leave Liverpool. If you look at what we are bringing in, look at our 2, look at our 3. These are people who can spread crosses, kickers. You need a proper number 9. You need somebody who will put the ball at the back of the net. So, in other words, you need a striker who can head, a striker who can hold up play. We are not, in as much as our team, we have goals all over the team. From the midfield, the only place that goal is lacking is in the midfield, which they have improved by bringing in Florian Wirtz. So we have goals all over the team. So, but they need that number 9, whereby if things get hard, you can have somebody who can be able to convert, put one goal or something. So I think at some point, they are not in a hurry to sell him because the striker market is somehow now. They are not in a hurry. What Liverpool is doing is they have places they feel. If you look at this Frimpong, if we didn't sign Frimpong, Man City can even get him. There are other clubs that will be looking for him. Kekes, you heard a rumor of Madrid then. Man City wanted him before they went for Ignori. Florian Wirtz, you see 2 giants European club, Man City and Bayern Munich coming for him. So if you see these critical areas, we just want to complete this deal because this deal are going to be hot market deal. But I am going to tell Liverpool fans, the number 9 market, Liverpool will get a number 9, but it is a number 9 we are not familiar with. It's a number 9 that they have to, I think they are very chilled when it comes to that. They are not making too much noise. Everybody is carrying a kitty, this. They are very chilled. They are very relaxed. Because I think they have seen the striker they want. They have seen the striker that fits what they want. I don't know who the striker is, but I think they are going to get a striker.
Okay.
It might not be Isaac, it might not be, but it will be an unknown striker. The way they got Diogo Jota, the way that kind of signing, they are going to pull that string in terms of that kind of signing. So, like a question I heard you asking, you said, if we need a striker and we need a centre back, which one would be the best option? My brother, I'm going to take a centre back. Konate is made of plastic, though we have Slot have managed him a lot. Konate is like a biscuit. He can fell down anytime. And if something happens, who are you going to? Are you going to rely on Pansa? Are you going to rely on Joe Gomez? So I think they are looking at Diomande. He is 21 years.
He's a quality player.
Yeah, he's 21 years. And I think these guys want him to leave at any fee around 50 to 45 million pounds. So I think Liverpool might be looking, because for them to have gone for Højsund shows us that they need a centre back, 100%. Yeah, so I think they are going to go for that guy, 21 years, very strong, very possessive. He's a very nice player. So for me to have seen that link, I think this is their type of player that they really will go for. In terms of midfielder, after this, I don't think they're going to sign any other midfielder. I don't think so. They have a lot of people to foot that bill in the midfield. Where you have McAllister, you have Gravenberch, you have Szoboszlai, you have Curtis Jones, you have Endo, you have this. You are going to play 3 out of these 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that squad happy.
Yeah.
So you don't need to bring any other person, and who will you sell from the place? This individual, no one. They still have a part to play. And record that it was this midfield that won us this league. So you don't need to disband them immediately. So the way they added one person, I think they are okay with the midfield. I think they're not going to do any work there. This is just double pivot. Szoboszlai has played against Chelsea. He had a good game. He can play that double pivot with McAllister. Endo is there. Endo can play that double pivot. All these guys. So I think Curtis Jones can play it. Curtis Jones can also play as number 10. He
Yeah.
has done it. Szoboszlai can play as number 10. So if you see these guys are dynamic. So I don't think they are going to do much work in that number 10. That's what I think.
No, I agree. I think the midfield one, I don't see it being a priority position, especially with the names you mentioned. That is adequate quality to cover the likes of Gravenberch and McAllister. Because I don't think we're going to sign a midfielder that overtakes either of those players. So
Yeah.
there's no point of just signing midfielders for the sake of it. For me, if it's going to be a midfielder, it's going to be someone that's going to rotate or challenge Gravenberch and McAllister, and those type
Yeah.
of players, they're not available like that, then you have to spend a lot of money to acquire those players. And I feel like the focus, as you rightly said as well, it has to be the striker. We've had Darwin Nunes over the years, and I feel like we've just lacked that killer instinct in front of the goal. We need to try and resolve that and try and find a proper striker. My question for you: who would be your striker? Who would be your dream signing or realistic signing? Because I know at the minute, I think he's gone off now. Um, but back to one of his points as well. If he comes back, I'll ask him that question again. But he mentioned Diomande. Now, I've been a big fan of Diomande. I've mentioned Diomande previously in one of my transfer shows when I was trying to assess the defensive department. My only concern with Diomande is not the player itself in terms of ability. I see him as a Konate type of midfielder. So if he was to join Liverpool, that would indicate that Konate is leaving because he's a natural replacement for Konate because they share very similar sort of skills and traits. And the good thing about Diomande is that he can play in a back three. He's very good on the ball, very comfortable on the ball in possession. He can even play as the DM. So, we mentioned all of these midfielders that can play in the double pivot. He could be an emergency option if required. So for me, Diomande would be a good signing. I think he'd be available between 30-35 million. So, that's not a crazy amount in this day and age. So I think Diomande is a great shout. And I think the striker, it's a debate where the popular names are always going to be Isak or Alvarez. I just wish those were the players that we could sign, but it just seems very, very unlikely. With Isak, if Newcastle didn't qualify for Champions League football, then I think we could really test the waters there. Alvarez, I just don't see that one happening. I thought there might have been a slim glimmer of hope of us maybe acquiring the Argentine striker. I just feel like, you've got to look at other factors as well. He's in Spain, the lifestyle is probably reminiscent of how it is when he's in Argentina. So he's not going to want to leave that and come back to rainy England all of a sudden. His missus, I know that has been vocal about that. She doesn't like, she didn't like living in Manchester. So, you know, these things, do play a part in players' decision to stay or to move on at other clubs. So I don't know who else is out there. Gyökeres, for me, there's still question marks on him. If he was to be signed, I wouldn't be annoyed. I would just be like, okay, fine, that's the one they've identified. Let's see how he does. But if it was an Isak or Alvarez, that would give me, you know, a different kind of excitement where I feel like, we could be invincible this year. That's the kind of caliber of striker that I really want us to go for. But let's see what happens. We'll probably hear some rumors circulating in the coming days. Nunes apparently rejecting a move to Saudi today. Tomorrow we might be hearing something completely different. So who knows in terms of what happens with Darwin Nunes. Um, Ozan Kabak referencing back Liverpool's comment there. That was quite funny, to be fair. Big up yourself, Ozan Kabak. Abdul says, hi everyone, how you all doing? Each of you possesses extensive expertise and comprehensive knowledge of Liverpool Football Club. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Big up to everyone in the chat. And big up to the callers that have called in today. It wasn't planned for me to have a call-in session today. I shared the link to JK, who I've had previously on the show. So it ended up being an open platform. So I might do this a bit more, especially with the transfer shows. I think it would be a nice way to engage with you guys as well. So yeah, if you want to come on, feel free to drop a comment. Let me know. I'll try and get you guys on. obviously, depends on my schedule. If I'm able to do longer shows, then yeah, we can, talk for as long as we want. But no, it's great to have JP, great to have back Liverpool, and great to have JK. So big up you three for coming on the shows. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning, everyone. Let me give everyone a shout. Shout out to Abdul, JK, Mazzy, Rajib Painting. Who else do we have? Azrak. We've also got Kieran and Ozan Kabak. Big up yourself. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for sending your comments over. If you haven't already and you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. I will be doing another show tomorrow. So today I've been doing a player profile analysis of Rafael Leao. I'm going to go for another player tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to be discussing Malik Fofana of Lyon. Is that the type of profile that we're looking for? If Diaz was to leave an out-and-out left winger, we'll talk about that in tomorrow's show. Just got a last comment here from Vernon. Big up yourself, Vernon. He says, "Do you think we'll go for Diomande? He's really good. I hope we do. I really do rate the player. He's a player that I think in my squad analysis shows. So feel free to go through my channel. I did a series of shows I titled Squad Talk. So just type in Squad Talk within my channel, and I analyzed every department. I think Diomande was the guy that I earmarked as the one to sign. My only concern with that signing, as I previously just mentioned, was that if Diomande comes in, it could also mean that he is Konate's replacement. That means Konate will end up leaving. That's not the scenario that I want. So I'd love it to be where Konate signs a contract extension and Diomande also walks through the doors. Diomande for me, fantastic player, really strong on the ball, good in possession, uh, great in terms of aerial dominance. Can play in a back three very comfortably. Can play in a back four, and I think with Frimpong, because he predominantly plays on the right side of the centre back position. When Frimpong's going through his marauding runs, he has enough pace and power to cover that flank for Frimpong. So I think he'd be a fantastic player for us. So for me, Diomande would be a great signing, and I don't think he'd cost too much. I think he'd cost between 35, 40 million pounds. So I think that would be a good range. Slight concern might be the fact that he plays for Ivory Coast, so he won't be available in January if that's when AFCON is. But I've heard, I don't know if it's official, but I've heard that they are going to change the AFCON format at some point where it will be played in the summer or at a different part of the season where it doesn't conflict with the domestic leagues. So I think if that is what happens, that's a win for I think African football as well as the domestic football across Europe as well, because I always feel like with AFCON, it goes under the radar because it's played in January. If it's played in the summer, I know it's very hot in Africa at that time of the year, but you want to give as much limelight to African football as much as possible, because there's been some wonderful players that have come from Africa, and they've really shown good quality over the years. So I feel like they deserve to have full coverage where this part of the season, we're off season, we're probably you know itching to see live matches and stuff. So if you've got AFCON available at the time, I think all of us would go and watch it, because there's not much football around, and we'll definitely be entertained with the level of players that are playing for those nations. So for me, it's a win-win if that does happen. Just got a comment here from Fake Pundit. Big up yourself, Fake Pundit. He says, big up, bro, in chat. Big up yourself. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Bernard says, Malik Fofana is an exciting winger. Then we can compare Cherky to him. Slight different profiles. I would compare Malik Fofana to Barcola, because he was the guy that actually replaced Barcola in the team, and Barcola moved over to Paris Saint-Germain. So for me, Malik Fofana is that talent that I feel like could be the next one in France, and we've missed out on Barcola. We were even linked with Desiree Doué at one point before he moved over to PSG. So, hopefully we can, stop this sort of movement happening in France where PSG are nicking all of these young emerging talents within the country. And we can do what we've done in Germany, where, we've gate crashed Bayern Munich's parade, or, their path of signing Florian Wirtz, and we end up taking one of the young gems in France as well. So that's a player I'll be talking about tomorrow. So feel free to tune in, and yeah, we'll talk about in terms of what he brings to the table and how he would fit in the Liverpool team. So yeah, it should be an interesting show. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.